These mountains are basically in a north-south orientation behind me. And what happens every fall? Anybody know in regards to birds? They travel southward. They're leaving their breeding areas and they're going back down to their wintering areas to spend the winter before they make their next pilgrimage or migration back to North America for breeding. Now, one thing that mountains help do is they actually help birds to migrate. When you look at a mountain, or anybody here live along a mountainside, do you tend to get lots of winds? Yep, you sure do. And what happens is that the mountains actually help to funnel those winds along the sides and also upwards. And if you were a bird with wings, that might be pretty helpful if the winds were going in the right direction. And actually, throughout the day to day, the winds are coming from the north, heading southward, at least at the moment. And so in the next few hours, keep your eyes open on the sky, because there's a great likelihood that you'll be seeing lots of birds coming through.
Not that harmful, but they can and do bite, because it's a perfect place for a centipede to stay at. Many women get bit, putting their hands in the potting soil, don't realize it's a perfect place for a centipede or a scorpion. So keep that in mind. And they're completely different from each other. One of them is very small, one of them is very large. I want you to look at one thing while I take this across here. The size of the pedipalp, or the pincher. In their world, the larger their pedipalp, the less venom they need. Look at how small the other one is. It's the small one that's way more dangerous. Does not need all that venom. He doesn't jump, he doesn't fly, he doesn't bite. They only defend any more of these in the pet shop after like and or a round eye cannot be venomous. So leave them alone. Pointed tail, round eye, leave it alone.
Look at the plants and you'll notice that most of them have very tiny little leaves. And this is another way that plants are able to survive here in the desert, because they don't lose a lot of water through their leaves, which is a byproduct of photosynthesis. If you go to the tropics, you'll notice that there are plants that have leaves as big as me, because they don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to lose water.
There you go. Good job.
That water gets into the river also, and it goes down to houses. Look at the water on the And then, guess what this is? This is the ocean. Do we have an ocean nearby? Not here, but
in the fall, that's when they get into their feeding frenzy. 20 to 21 hours a day these guys are going to eat. They've got to build up enough fat. That's when you have most of the human-bear encounters. They're getting in the trash cans. They're eating the dog food. They're coming into town trying to get into the trash in town. They're trying to get enough calories built up.
So if a pack has pups and they die, or there's only one left, it is not considered a breeding pair. As of this year, in this month, a new pack was released into the wild called the Meridian pack, but another pack was removed, and they had to be removed lethally because they had killed at least 5 cows. And this is an agreement that Fish and Wildlife have with the ranchers, that if wolves cause depredation to their livestock, that they can be removed. Sometimes they are removed and sent back to another wolf facility. Occasionally they have to be taken out legally. Okay, we're going to start with this young lady right here. We want to hear a very good howl. Let's do it again and with the microphone.
Sometimes predator becomes prey. Sometimes the mouse or the rat that you give the snake starts eating on the snake because the snake doesn't want to eat. All of a sudden you got a big old gash on the snake, and that's not good. So we give them frozen thawed. That way we kind of avoid that issue. So a little bit of a safety precaution on our part.
Do they bite?
Do they bite? All of our animals can bite. They all have teeth. So I can't exactly pry his mouth open, but his teeth are probably about that long. As his prey item, he coils around it. That way it holds it in place. And each time that animal that he grabbed and has got a coil around it, each time that animal lets a breath out, he can.
Of the businessman who was leasing the top of North Franklin Peak started a campaign to get the governor to veto the bill because of these defects in the bill. Representative Coleman and State Senator Tati Santiesteban got with the governor, and they made a commitment to him that if he passed the bill, they would introduce legislation in the next session to perfect the boundary.
I want you to imagine for a minute, you're coming into El Paso, it might be up here in Northeast, and you come up Trans Mountain Road, and you look off to the right, and you see a complex there. And it is the Chihuahuan Desert Museum. And imagine you see a video, a movie, maybe 3D, if I have anything to do with it, and you can see where this great desert formed and how, and what the history of it was, and especially geology. And then you go in the next room and you see this display of all the great flora that we have here. I have taken 5,000 photos on mountain walks just of the flowers, to see what it was that I was looking at and try and discover where it came from and how it spread in this region. The acotillo, the greasewood, the lechuguilla, the prickly pear, the beautiful Texas rainbow. Imagine that you go into the next display and you find there are actually mountain lions not too far from where we're standing right now. And imagine that Chihuahua Desert Museum gets started in 2 years. Guess what? We're going to make that happen. We've had a committee meeting now for 2 years to lay out some plans of things that we want to do. Representative Pat Haggerty, who's on that side of the mountain and coming around here, is helping me. We're going to lay out a appropriation of the first $500,000 to make this thing happen. This has been in the strategic plan of this park for how long? About 10 to 12 years to make this thing happen. And the way you get things done is you lay out a vision, you make a plan, you bring people together, and you get it done. That's one thing. The second thing we're going to do, we as a community and a region are going to commit to keeping Kastner Range wild and put it in the park. Raise your hand if you're in favor of that. Now raise your hand if you're willing to do something to make that happen. It's a big difference, folks, to raise your hand if you're in favor of something. It's a much bigger deal to raise your hand if you're willing to do something to make it happen. We've got this committee going. I want your help. We've been meeting to lay out the plans to keep both the military and Redco and a whole bunch of other people that want to lay their hands on that. And what we're going to do is push and push and push to put that in the park. That may take 1 year, it may take 10 years. But this community has to say, just say yes to Kastner into the park. If we say that and we rise up as a people, I guarantee you we'll get that done. There's a couple issues there with ordnance. Back in the old days that was used as a range that people shot ordnance into. We're going to clean that up. We're going to put it in the park. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about when we sit down as a community. Third thing, let's imagine that you start right here at Trans Mountain Road. Now, some people have done this in this group. I'm looking at them right now. You can tell by their calves. Their calves are about that thick from walking this mountain. But you start on Trans Mountain Road and go all the way to Scenic Drive. How many of you done that? Can you imagine how much fun that would be? It's an 8-hour trip. I've done half of it, but I never went the hardest part, which is right down there near Trans Mountain, because I never had the time and didn't make the time to make it happen. But we were talking about it coming over here, that the rim-to-rim trail goes into the park, so you can actually start at Scenic, put on a backpack, and come all the way to Trans Mountain Road. That is on the agenda of things that we're going to make happen in the next 4 years. Now, are we going to get all these done? I predict we don't get the cast and range thing done because it can cost some money, but we're going to keep it out of Retzko's hands, I guarantee you that. We will get the Chihuahua Desert thing done because we're going to get the money. We've been talking about it to the Parks Department now for almost a year. The rim-to-rim trail has another goal attached to it. Where I live down at that end of the mountain near UTEP, guess what? For me to go up the mountain, I got to go through a gate because they have gated off our mountain. You cannot go up the C road and get to the top of the mountain without going through some property where folks say stay off the mountain. Now, we've talked to this landowner many times and we're working with him. And we're trying to make the same kind of deal we made for the Trans Mountain Ranger Peak. That was the first bill I ever passed. What bill was that? It was to put the tramway back into operation so you could get to the bottom of the mountain, take the tram, take yourself a nice lunch, go up to the top, and watch the sunset. Anyone ever done that here? Now let's get some of these kids to raise their hand. What we need to have happen is for you to ask, Mom, I heard the senator talk about this tramway, and I want to go on that tramway as soon as I leave here today. How many kids will ask their parents that? Please raise your hand. You're going to have the time of your life, and when you get up there, buy some of the stuff up there so we can keep the park going, okay? Tell Mom and Dad, give me about 15 bucks. I need a nice hat. Okay, let's talk about the next thing we want to work on. The next thing we want to work on, and I've taken a big, terrible political beating, is we need to shut down that quarry that's blowing up our mountain. You can't have a quarry get bigger and bigger and bigger right in the heart of the Franklin Mountains. And that's something that we've been working on with the previous owner. I'm going to be honest, we didn't get very far with him. And we're working on it the very next day that this new owner bought it, which is an outfit named Cemex. But we need to limit what is happening in our mountain, where you wake up every day and you get on that Trans Mountain Road, and then you get over here to the tramway, you go to the top, and you look down, and there's a hole that's bigger than Dallas right in the middle of your mountain. That shouldn't happen in El Paso, Texas. What we need to do is to bring together the people to say, let's make this mountain a priority, and let's stop this kind of destruction when it's happening. I want to talk about one last thing, because this is how great cities move ahead. Bright, young political leaders like this one says, I like what this senator's saying. I think I'm going to get on this committee. And some of them start to walk precincts like this one right here. You get out and you make it happen because you lay out a vision and people say, yeah, I like that. Let's go make it happen. Let's move this town. Let's make it go forward. We need to take the land use plan that you see on that map, and you see the arroyos that are on that map, and there's not a building in those arroyos because that is God's best plan for flood, and it has a reason for being there. And we need to take and pass laws this year the way they did in New Mexico to say you can't build in an arroyo, and we're not going to pay for the roads, and we're not going to do the sewage, because 2 years later we're going to have to pay for the flood. And that's something that we need to put into a political agenda and get it done at the city and state